Hi, everybody. Welcome to the intersection on the Politics Social channel with me, Rachel Harris, and
Graham Hughes. Hello, I'm
Graham
here.
Hughes.
But
Hey, Happy
I'm
New
not
Year.
I'm not trans or black or I'm just like a middle-aged white man. Why am I on this channel? Why am I
Wait,
even here?
because we're both ginger as well, and
Okay.
that's
That's a minority, isn't it?
a minority that gets picked on as well.
Big
So
shout out to everyone in the chat, by the way. We've got Sarah Davis in there. We've got One Angry Pagan, Russell Cannon, and Tripod. Because of the worry about, obviously, trolls on this subject, we've made it so it is members only. So it's only members. But there are
sorry about that.
155 members now, thanks to Svax and others buying memberships for people. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
So if you are a member, you can comment. So please do.
Can't go wrong.
Love to hear what you have to say about all this. So,
Brilliant.
do you want to kick us off? It's been 2 months since our last show.
I know.
And a lot's happened, hasn't it? Happy New Year, by the way. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and Happy New Year, socialites. It's really good. It's been, I stopped, doing, I only do fundraising for trans groups now. I don't do much, I don't do any campaigning or anything anymore. Because if you do, as our trans viewers will know, it gets it's a bit toxic. And so I've been off the scene, really, just fundraising quietly. But actually, a lot's happened. Not much of it positive, though. I'm going to try and find some silver linings in the materials we're going to go through. We've got about 6 or 7 big things we want to cover quickly. 7 things, but not all bad. Okay. So let's go in.
Puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers. Well, we know that now. Obviously, Labour, and I was a Labour supporter. They suck on trans. They suck big.
So was I. I called this channel Labour Social, trying to help them get elected. We got them elected. Change the name.
Well, there's a lot of NUS stuff that Labour have done, which is coming up. But obviously they blocked they banned them under the caste review in the NHS, and now they're banning them privately. So obviously cisgender kids can get them
on a private prescription. That is mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can still get heroin on a private prescription in this country. Heroin.
Yeah.
If you got the money for it, you can get heroin in this country prescribed for you by a doctor. If you need it, because it's fucking fantastic if you had a heart attack. If you need pain medication that doesn't affect your heart, heroin. Number one.
There's lots of stuff. There's lots of very dangerous drugs you can get on from, but probably the blockers aren't dangerous. No. And we're going to come on to that. But so the first thing was blocking the private route. Then we had the inquiry into how many deaths of trans children, death by suicide. The investigation for Wes said there weren't any, but a lot of, there was a thing about what the Good Law Project had released just before that report. If you look at social media, I'm not on social media, as you know, though weirdly on Mumsnet, people think I am. You would see that a lot of trans people, the way that was compiled, a lot of people weren't getting treatments in gender identity clinics, but they were waiting to get to it. So it wasn't wrapped up. There was certainly a parent of a trans child who was their figures, the death of their daughter wasn't covered in the stats, which they should have been legitimately under the rules so there's a lot of pretty nasty, felt very honest. So it just put the whole community before Christmas in a very bad place. However, the slight good news is that more and more other countries are not seeing the cash report as being a valid. We know all the criticisms. We've done a program on it. The Yale Law School had already criticized it. We covered that. But also Japan have come up and been critical against it. Puberty blocker is okay. Affirmative care is good. Australia, puberty blocker is okay. Affirmative care good. New Zealand, puberty blocker is okay. Affirmative care is good. Now, this week, the French Society of Pediatric Endocrinology and Diabetology came out with a totally opposite conclusion of CAS and said, puberty blocker is good. Affirmative care good. So more and more bodies, we always said this, that when it became under scrutiny, it was going to be found to be a flawed methodology, and more and more organizations are saying that.
Here's the thing, like, it's not banned for cisgender children. Like, if it's, I don't get how this, someone needs to sit me down and tell me in like very simple words of one syllable how it can be bad for a trans child to take, but not for a cisgender child to take. Like,
but this is about, absolutely. But this is
about. Does the medicine know? Rachel?
But as every trans campaigner has said, this isn't about the care of trans children. They don't care about trans children. They don't care about trans adults. They care about bigotry.
Yeah.
And the Council of Europe, I mean, so my casing point is Cass actually said, let's do a trial on puberty blockers. And those people have opposed puberty blockers are now saying, no, don't want a trial either. But this is what Cass recommended. We need to do a trial. But the Council of Europe have come out against this and said, actually, this could be a breach of human rights, because if you put half the trial on placebos, that's the infringement of their health of their healthcare. So it could be a problem anyway, running a trial in the way. You can't do a blind trial, which is why Cass rejected loads of the trials data in her report. But it can't be a blind trial. It has to be the drug. Otherwise it doesn't. So pretty bad on puberty blockers. And we'll be moving on to adult care later in this discussion.
One angry pagan saying it's because they want to treat trans as an ideology.
Yeah,
and that's a good point. But I mean, like, could you have a law that said you're not allowed to give this treatment to Christian children or to Jewish children?
Not at the moment. It's
Muslim children can have it, but Jewish children can't, or vice versa. How could you get away with that?
It's back to the philosophy of if you want to take away everybody's rights, you've got to start with trans people. You can't attack women head on because they have rights. You can't attack gay people on because they have rights. Trans people don't have any right. They didn't have these protections. So this is how you leave all the rights off. You've got to go. It's the gateway hate drug.
Yep.
It's the sport, the children, the adult care. This is not about.
It's a Trojan horse as well, isn't it? To not just a gateway drug for people who want to be prejudiced, but also it's a Trojan horse for getting rid of everyone else's rights.
Absolutely.
You want to stop gay marriage? Okay, well, go after the trans people, and then once you've demoralized them and demonized them and chucked them out, because we're going to talk about that as well.
We are.
Let's just pass the House of Representatives. Oh my God! But once you've done all that, then great, we can go after gay marriage now, which is exactly what they're doing in the US. This isn't us just going.
It's happening in real time.
I can pontificate and hypothesize and see the future in my hypotheticals. This is actually fucking happening. It's happening now.
Because acceptance in the UK is very high for trans people still. In the US, they've been their education system is not as great as ours. They've been bombarding them for a long time with this. And they've got bored. They couldn't go at the pace of transphobia that we do in the UK. So somebody in America just clicked it on fast. It's gone. Trans people, same-sex marriage, women, black people, disability. Let's do them all at the same time, because we've got the funding and you've got the ecosystem, the right-wing ecosystem to push all that at the same time. In the UK, we don't have that ecosystem to push all that hate at the same time. So they have to do what they push all their efforts, because actually most British people don't care about trans people that in a good way, in that they don't want to know. They just get on with your life. That's fine. Or they they want to support us. So in a main, they've been throwing 10,000 new articles every 2 years in the media. And the difference between
10,000 articles, anti-trans articles in the media. 10,000.
It was over 2 years. Yeah, so follow Mimi Mum on Blue Sky. Not on Blue Sky, but Mimi Mum did an analysis of the newspapers I think it was 2 years ago, and in there you'll see that the articles that come out, and most of these articles are false right across. And the acceptance? The acceptance did fall, but it didn't fall very much. I mean, it's just like you've really had to try very hard. So there is that going on. So that they're trying a different tactic now, because they're just doing it, and I'm coming on to what I call death by guidance. So it is a gateway drug. It is a way of getting to other rights. In the UK, they have to do it one at a time. And we're now seeing, we're coming on to Meta. Let's not short circuit this, but they are coming on to women and other people now. And you're hearing Reform talk about abortion and a lot of other things. So it is all the things we said would happen. And I'll come on to that. Let's look about the next thing then. Let's talk about the EHRC. Labour did not change the
European Human Rights
Yeah, the Equality and Human Rights Commission.
Commission.
Obviously not the most happy clappy trans inclusive organization. That's how the trans community feel about it, and that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
We were hoping for a new leader. Hasn't happened. They're going to leave the existing leader in. Translucent did a great report on one of the board members. I'm not going to name that board member, but if you look at Translucent's website, you will see their link to ADF.
Just to be clear, the Tories weaponized this department. Well,
this department. Yeah.
Is it a department?
Yeah, well, it's a sort of Quango independent group. It was set up by Labour.
Yeah, but the Tories staffed it with
it was
trans obsessives.
Kemi Badenoch and Liz Truss put their. So it's got a lot of young people left. A lot of people are very upset. A load of stories were leaked last year by Ben Hunt at the BBC and a load of things, and the year before. So not a happy organisation. It seems to it doesn't represent the trans community very well. As I say, there's some links from one of their board members to the ADF Christian Concern and the Kira Bell case, and that was broken by Translucent. So go and have a look at the article on the Translucent side. Yeah. There's also a current case by this said person from the Equality and Human Rights Commission about a trans child at the moment. It's called OVP and Q. If you want to know more about that case, look at the again. It's been on the Blue Sky. It's followed by a person called Amir Solicitor broke that case down, and it's one parent wants to help their trans child transition, the other parent doesn't.
Right.
And this lawyer's involved in that. This feels like and what they did was a really nice analysis on Gillick competency, which is for young people who are deemed to be adults to get vaccines and abortion. And they always link trans cases like they did with Kira Bell to try and chip away at the Gillick competency, which is about women's rights. Okay. So it is always that. However, as Amir Solicitor pointed out, this case defunks that now because the child is now 16. So, and Gillick is for 16, under 16. But it's another case. So the Equality and Human Rights Commission, this is not the greatest. Obviously, they gave evidence in the Mayor Forsyth case, which allows gender critical belief in the workplace. They came in on that, and that was on the advice of this said person in the Equality and Human Rights Commission. So it's not a happy place. No. But Labour's just fucked it for everybody because they just basically didn't. We thought they would come in. I was told by Labour MPs that they would change the management at the top, and they didn't. So that's another letdown for Labour. So the equality. Now, moving on, because I want to get through the topics. Meta. Dun, dun, dun. So if you're on a Meta product, if you're on Instagram or Facebook or any of these, you're hurting the community now. There's a lot of media going out about people, get yourself off. Don't go, oh, I've got my auntie in Ireland, or I've got some photographs on there. This organization has now just changed its guidance. There's no fact checking, so it's going to be community notes, and we all know how well that worked on Twitter. Yeah. There's a good article in the 404 Media on the chaos inside the Meta right now about all the employees pushing back. A lot of LGBT organized employees feel very disappointed in their organization. They've already deleted the message themes for pride and trans and stuff in their chat. That's all been deleted. So it's not just about, we're not fact checking, it's also, you can now attack a trans person and call them mentally ill, but you also can say a gay person is mentally ill. And moving on to women, you can call women objects and property. And that is absolutely fine under the new guidance.
Objects.
So, that is interesting. Now, the good news, I fundraise and I have been contacted. I was well known when I used to work in used to do trans training and stuff. A load of women's networks are waking up to this because I've always said it's not about trans people, it's about women's rights. And now a lot of gender networks in corporates are going, hang on a minute, what? Why are we getting attacked? Yeah. A lot of LGB people are encouraged to attack trans people. There are certain organizations set up to do that. Not going to name them. A lot of gay guys who were like, oh no, trans people actually going, hang on a minute, I haven't got mental illness. Yeah. And a lot of there's a lot of LGBT groups suddenly coming together going, hang on a minute, we need to fight on the trans battleground to defend their rights. So we are hearing about a lot of gender networks, a lot of LGBT networks coming together going, hang on a minute, this was all trans people have been saying this was going to happen, and Meta are now attacking women. And what was also interesting was a lot of organizations that are out there to protect women from trans people are applauding these changes on Meta. Shocker. Who knew? Hashtag we all did.
We all did.
So
who could have possibly seen this coming?
And I don't work in corporate. I don't do that. I don't do this stuff anymore. But a lot of corporate organizations are going, hang on a minute. A, we don't want to advertise on Meta. But secondly, we've got women in it. Well, obviously, half our company are women. So this is having a bit. This may be the silver lining that, he's got Zuckerberg's taken the knee in America, but worldwide, a lot of the corporates that I used to work with are all going, hang on a minute. This is women. And that's tying up with the talks about abortion and women's rights and voting rights and white women should stay at home and have babies. All that right-wing stuff is now in the United Kingdom, and lots of women are waking up to it. And I'm not on Blue Sky, as I keep saying, everybody thinks I am. I'm not, but I'm getting loads of links sent to me by loads of people of a lot of these people coming together. So I don't know, could be a silver lining there. I'm not in.
I have noticed that just on Facebook, I'm seeing less transphobia, and I think mainly because I'm blocking anyone who saw being transphobic.
That'll do it.
Well, no, first of all, I asked them if they were trans, and then they'll say no, and I'll say, well, why are you so obsessed with trans people then? And then they'll write me a big long spiel that I wouldn't read. I'd just block them. But also, I'm not seeing as many people just wanting to put their head above the parapet on this. And in a way, that's a bad thing because we need more allies. But in another way, at least they're not being horrible. At least they're not joining the gender, feeling empowered to be horrible to trans people.
But you know, a lot of the gender critical movement move in the darkness. You know, they go into Parliament and have a little chat with the Lord, and they go they do a lot of that. But so do we. You know, a lot of my colleagues are in and out of Parliament. They're in and out of a lot of government offices and MPs. They are talking. And they're not shouting about it because they don't shout. So why would you? Because you get attacked or you'd end up in one of the national papers. So there's a lot of chat going on now where there's a sort of tilt. There's a lot of financing going into LGBT activism campaigning now, but it's not being shouted about. It's not scumming. It's not. It's because you can't, because you just get pulled apart. So although they are working in the dark, but so are we. We have to. So because we're not safe, they're safe because they've got the media and everybody and backing them up. But trans people are not safe, and so they're having to work quietly. But they are working, and LGBT people and a lot of so there is a lot of groups coming together to work on this. That's why I get out of bed in the morning, because I can still, because I'm not forlorn about it, because I can see that. And they're not going to go on Twitter and shout on Facebook and shout about it. And they're not. And in fact, most of them are coming off Facebook. In fact, I think seen some graphs. It's been sent to me about their shares and their pricing on Meta. It's gone down, hasn't it? And their usages have got, and their members have gone. So I've been seeing a few.
Of course, I mean that was bound to happen because they're pissing their own people. The people don't want to go on social media to be abused. They want to go on social media to find out what the mate's doing, watch some funny videos of kittens falling off things. They want to do it for fun. It's supposed to be entertaining, and they've made it social media, the shitification of the internet. They've made all this awesome shit, and they've made it all the experience for everyone, not just the trans people. I loved it. They've made the experience shit.
Yeah, I loved social media. I used to be on Twitter and Facebook. I went on Twitter and Facebook. Facebook in 04. It's one of the first ones. Twitter, I was in 06. And I was on there for years. I came off Twitter 3 years ago. I came off Facebook 2 years ago.
Because of the abuse.
Yeah, and I've not been on, but I'm not back on any. I mean, do you remember I gave my Time Traveler account to one of our subscribers, and he ended up on Mumsnet. So, because they thought it was me. And I think there's so much of that. So I'm not on social media. I don't know how much I can say.
This is it, though. I mean, you not being on social media and other people being driven away from social media, not using it because they don't want to be abused. They don't want to be told they're a twat every day. And as a result of that, they're losing advertising money because fewer eyeballs are seeing things on their site. And, it's all seen in the metrics. And so they're doubling the number of adverts that you're getting to compensate for the people who aren't using it every day. I mean, they might still have, X many billion people with a Facebook account, but that doesn't matter. What matters is your daily active users. And on Twitter, that's gone off a cliff. And so it's just
and look at the quality of the advertising. It all ends up being sex bots or the one slipper that you get, or the bra extender, or the bra extender, or the bra extender, or something weird. but
A bar extender.
Yeah, but you put it on your back when you get put on weight. You know,
oh no, that okay. Sorry,
it's all the weird products that nobody buys.
So, I just want to interrupt because Alan Jackson has become a superstar on this channel, superstar member on this channel. So I've got a new animation. It says "Welcome new members." Yay! Because people keep buying people membership on this channel.
Lovely.
So yeah, Alan Jackson, thank you for becoming the 152nd member of this channel.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna have to redo the credits again now.
Okay.
I just finished doing them. I just finished doing the new version for today. I'm gonna have to do another version for tomorrow if I can find time. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. So we were talking about the equalities and human rights.
Yeah. Commission. So when we're done with that, really, Labour were going to replace the management, make it a bit more independent again, and. You know, the loads of just gone look at the Ben Hunn articles. Vice did a load of articles on it. Pink News have done loads of articles on it, on who runs it, how it's connected. Translucent have done an investigation. These are all, stuff that's been done.
And then we've got obviously the Meta and
the Meta.
And so Twitter removing fact checking and moderation.
Yeah. So the good and TikTok's the other thing. Obviously. Loads of stuff about TikTok in America. Are they going to get rid of it? Are they going to sell it to Musk or blah, blah, blah? What I do like, and there's a million on YouTube, there are a load of TikTokers talking about what they're going to do if America bans it. And a lot of the TikTokers believe that they're banning it because actually it's young people pushing back against authoritarian governments and they don't like that.
Yeah.
So what are the young people doing? If you look at the #1 app on a lot of the platforms now, it's Red Note. They're all moving across to the Chinese version of
Chinese
TikTok.
one.
I don't care where their data goes.
Chairman Mao's little red book, red notebook. Just before we go on, a couple of things here. Sarah Davis saying, can you report any hate messages on Facebook to the police? Generally speaking, it's only if it's at you individually. As an individual, you can report that to the police. You certainly can, and you certainly should report to the police, because even if they do fuck all about it,
they'll record it as a stat.
They'll record it. It'll go in the stats. And one angry pagan saying, I know people who have been jailed for defending their trans friends. Physical abuse, etc. It's horrific. It's horrific what people are going to.
Well, the fact is that trans people, so if I walk down the street and somebody attacked me, I wouldn't hit them back. I'd just have to let them beat me, because if I hit them back and I hurt them, I can end up in a male prison, and I don't want that, because I'll be probably raped and attacked and all the other stuff that goes on, because they don't care about trans. The new guidance in prisons I'm not covering today basically puts all trans women in male prisons now, and there's a protest
all 5 of them.
Yeah,
it is just. I mean, this is the thing that we'll come on to it in America, but the number of trans athletes in America, professional trans athletes, you could fit them in this room. You could fit them in this fucking room.
But it's also this stat, you see, because there's a lot of articles online about trans prisoners, and there was a stat the gender critical movement been pushing out about that. Over half of trans prisoners who are some sort of sex pest or something, and if you look at the articles that I've been reading, it's all manipulated data, and it just so. But of course, that's what's being sent into the house. So I see some of the lords send me some of the stuff they receive, and so you see this the manipulated data, and they pick up websites with all the most sort of more masculine looking trans people they can find. So look at all these people. It's horrible, insidious stuff, and it all gets sent to a lot of our. A lot of the lords go and take these meetings and then send it out to the trans community, so we see it. So it is cruel, and it goes on, but we have to fight where we fight. So the next one, talking of the law, is the CPS, the Crown Prosecution.
Can I just jump in? Because we've got another member. Thank you very much to Chris C. Welcome to the Lone Star member. Thanks very much, Chris. I really appreciate that. And if you do want to become a member of the channel, just press the join button. Ivan, if you're watching this, I don't know what the hell is going on. Ivan Ambrose, he can't. It won't let him become a member, even though it's allowed him to give massive super chats. Like, he basically funded this channel through that. Thanks, Ivan. It's not allowing us to become a member. It's deeply infuriating. And I was like, well, it comes up and we've gone through it on his phone, on his computer, and it doesn't come up with the join button. Anyway, CPS.
Ghost in the machine. Yeah. So the Crown Prosecution Service, been very good on trans, but have changed their remember, I called it death by legislation, but death by guidance, because they've been trying to change the law and try and get us banned from this and get us banned from that, and it hasn't really worked for them. So they're doing it what I call death by guidance. So we had the court. Remember, I talked about the the equal treatment guidance in
Yeah.
courts had been written by somebody obviously gender critical and made it very. It was on Mumsnet. I read it on Mumsnet the other day. And it was really, they were all celebrating that it had kind of it had become quite disrespectful for trans people in court. Well, the CPS have done this. No, obviously there's about consent, about relationship. What's consent of going out with someone or having sex with somebody or being in a relationship or starting a relationship? Well, the guidance has sort of been changed. It kind of implies that trans people have to tell people they're trans. So you could have transitioned 40 years ago. You could have gender reassignment surgery. You could have changed your birth certificate. You've been living as a woman for 30 years. And now you meet a guy and you really love him. You love them. You have to tell them. It's almost like it really feels like you've got to wear a badge now because the guidance, it has to be tested, but it's kind of implying that that's not consent otherwise because they don't know about your gender identity and your history, which is shocking.
But I mean, this feels to me like a fucking crying game.
Oh, it's that. It's that. Yeah, it is like the crying game.
Even worse than that. It feels a bit like God.
And it's all sexual activity.
Ventura.
Yeah.
Levels of, there's loads of trans women, and what they do is they get men to fall in love with them, and then they turn out to be trans. And it's like, does this really happen in real life?
No, but this what triggered this was there was a girl that pretended to be a boy to date another girl, and this girl wasn't trans when she did this, and that's triggered this whole guidance.
One case of a cis.
Yeah, so there's a really good analysis by a person called Jesso Thompson. It was sent to me. It was on Blue Sky again, and it breaks this down in very good detail. But it does feel like you're starting a relationship. It does make you feel like you have to tell somebody that you're trans.
Rachel, like 99% of rapists get away with it in this country. Have they not got bigger fish to fry? So you go out on a date with someone, and they fancy you, you fancy them. And before you kiss, you have to tell them? I mean, that's the law. I mean, most people would anyway, I think.
But these groups protecting women don't care about that.
So if you're on a date, with a guy, let's just say, and the guy was coming. Oh, a woman. Actually, a better example. You're on a date with a woman, right?
Yeah.
And she just sits there the whole time telling you what a gender crit she is. A massive transphobe. Are you going to go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to take her home, have sex with her, and then reveal, that I'm a trans man? No, you're fucking not. Who would do that? Who would do that?
No, God. But it just feels like you have to wear a badge saying we're trans, or, hello. It just feels, hello.
So they want you to pass, and if you don't pass, you've got to wear a badge.
Hello. It's like going into, hello, I'd like to come into Tesco's and buy some shopping, but I need to tell you that I'm trans. This is the kind of, feels like that. Anyway, Jesso Thompson did a breakdown on this, but it does feel like, because there's no test case, so it may not be this, but that's what the guidance implies. And so it feels, Jesso Thompson, look on Blue Sky, did a really good analysis. And there was another lawyer did as well. So it's just another death by guidance.
Jesus.
I know. Then we had
guidance again. I mean, this is going back to the Supreme Court in the US. Yeah. They don't change the law. They just do the guidance on the law. Well, and you can cause a lot of trouble. And this is what the right-wing Nazis that are running America now, this is what they got into their heads a few years ago. They went, hang on, guys, we're not getting any laws passed through this system because the system's fucked in America. You just don't pass laws. And so we need to do two things: executive power, give loads of power to the president, and also we need to change how laws are interpreted, the guidelines, which are in America decided by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is that guidance is a good way. I mean, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, have changed single sex guidance that I was seeing drafts that you saw drafts of, took all the trans examples out, and it's that kind of thing. Yeah. The Equal Treatment book on the bench it's just that the presumption.
Alan Jackson saying maybe trans people should be made to wear a star because that's what it sounds like. And you're absolutely right, Alan.
Yeah, I mean that's but they deny that, right? LGBT people in Germany went to the camps. The trans books, the gender identity books were the first ones burnt in Berlin. Yeah. And then you actually go on say that anywhere, and they will say, they're denying that Jewish people were killed. Not doing that. We know that 6 million Jews were murdered, but LGBT people were, gypsies were, people that opposed the Nazis were murdered. But but they'll always attack you on that because you're saying, how dare you mention that LGBT people get murdered? But they were.
Yeah.
In fact, they were treated really badly in the camps by everybody. And it's just that, oh, yeah. And I've heard trans people say we should wear a star, and the hard right then jump on them and go, oh, you're denying the Holocaust. No, they're not denying the Holocaust. That definitely
they're making
happened.
a point.
They're making a point that it was Jewish people, gypsies, people who are poor, political enemies, and LGBT people.
Yeah. You've got to be sensitive for mentioning the Holocaust, though, because obviously it is still a very, very
absolutely
emotive subject. Oh, quite right.
But there are those
emotive,
but there are gender critics that there are people who didn't sort of denied you weren't LGBT people,
including XY Rowling, who hasn't proved that she's a woman yet.
Yeah.
Chris C saying, I have been in prison as an LGBTQ rep and seen and dealt with trans prisoners being discriminated against by other prisoners and prison staff.
It's so bad. It's just people's worst nightmares of being in prison as an LGBT person.
Yeah.
And that's why we will never fight back. We would never, somebody attacked us, you just wouldn't, because you just don't know where that's going to go, especially with this sort of guidance that the CPS is coming out. I mean, they're barely dealing with rape and things for women.
Yeah.
But what would they do with trans people? They were not going to investigate that.
Can I ask though? I mean, just to go back to the whole fucking crying game thing. Like, do you know of any incidents in real life where that's happened?
No.
Where someone's pretended that they were cis, got someone into bed with them, and then gone, I'm not actually cis, I'm trans. Ha ha! I fooled you. And then that person has run away.
I've not heard of a case of that, but and I would be honest if I could think of something. But why would you?
Why would you? It just
not so. You think of the end game on that. No ending of that is good.
I know. So I mean, imagine as a trans woman, you pick up a man, right, and then you take them home with you. And then you even doesn't that put you in a very precarious situation?
I think that
there
are relationships where a trans woman hasn't told her partner that they transitioned 30 years ago and they're in a loving relationship. She knows the guy, and you hear stories when if the guy does find out, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact that we have a duty now to say that we're trans. I don't know. I think in my case, obviously, most people know I'm trans, and I don't care if people know I'm trans.
Yeah.
But there are people who don't want to be. They want to transition and get on with their lives.
They don't want it to be the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is J.K. Rowling's whole thing. Yeah. She stays up at night, crying her little sick heart out, a little black twisted heart out. Crying she is that trans people exist.
Yeah, I think there are, if a trans person doesn't want to tell a partner that they're dating, what they will be doing is assessing that partner's how broad-minded they are, what their views on trans people are. They'll be testing them to make sure that they think, oh, this guy actually likes trans people, and they're okay with LGBT people, and they're okay with, and they wouldn't date them. They certainly wouldn't, in my view, they probably wouldn't go into a long relationship with them unless they knew they had those views that they're probably going to be all right. So it's just like you do with anybody when you date them on anything, right? So
I remember seeing something a few years ago where it was like saying that trans women were forcing lesbians to go out with them, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're not.
That was the BBC that they asked a lesbian that was then. It was debunked because the lesbian that they'd asked had actually being in loos and being quite hostile to other lesbians. So it was debunked. And they went on Twitter and waited a long time and asked loads of anti-trans people about, would you date a trans person or blah, blah, blah. And it was all skewed. The BBC, this was the first time we knew we were in trouble with the BBC because they manufactured that article and they manufactured those stats. Yeah. And they had about 20,000 complaints. They had protests outside the BBC. It went on and on. It went to Ofcom, and it was anyway. The BBC kind of changed the article, but they never took it down in some jurisdictions. And that's when we knew that this is when I thought the sort of Tim Davie, Richard Sharpey, Robbie Gibb kind of management there was going to cause us problems.
Sarah Davis saying in the chat, I've gone back into survival mode. I only go out in hoodies. I accept I will never be in a relationship. That is so heartbreaking.
That's really sad,
I'm
Sarah.
so sorry, Sarah.
There are people out there, but you just it I restrict. I'm not on social media. I don't go out as much. I don't use public loos anymore. I mean, this is, they've driven us to, this is what they want. And so
Yeah.
your existence, I mean, I
We've
don't
got
want to
to
do
fight. We've got to fight.
I don't want to be on here. I mean, Graham knows
Yeah.
I get terrified coming on here to do this program. I do the research and I didn't want to come on, but visibility is the only weapon we have. And you have to, every day you go out, or the every day you go to a restaurant, or the every day you do something is a small victory. And however small that is, but you must do what's good for your mental health and your safety. But it is every day by existing. It seems to really piss them off. So it's and there are a lot of us out there, and they are working hard. I'm not, again, a lot of my friends. Graham's on Blue Sky. Are you on Blue Sky?
Yes,
but
Graham David Hughes. Graham David Hughes.
Right, yeah. A lot of my friends are on there. A lot of trans friends are on there, and there are a lot of great trans groups, and the block lists work, and you can block gender crits, and you can. Then trans people on Blue Sky are all linked up, and they're great. Apparently, so it seems to be a really lovely, friendly place. I'm not going to go on. Don't ask me, but they are. Apparently, it's a Disney ship. So we better go on to the.
Christy is saying, I'm really angry at Labour for not wanting to rock.
Labour are a dead loss.
I'm very, very disappointed.
Yeah. I vote. We all did the stop the Tories vote, and it was a very valid thing to do. But blimey.
And to be let down by Wes Streeting of all people, who is gay, like fucking.
Well, there are,
you get that, gay men are the worst. When you say that you're bisexual, it's gay men that give you the hardest time every time. Because they're like, you haven't made your mind up yet.
We're not doing Stephen Fry, but he shaved his hair and not started knocking around with some really hard right guys, and said he never supported Stonewall and blah blah blah. And that's really disappointing. We thought, Ian McKellen, bloody hero. Graham Norton, great guy.
Yeah.
There are some really Patrick Stewart.
Graham Norton said something really innocuous, like you should listen to trans children, and suddenly they were all jumping down his throat saying, he
had to come off Twitter. But Stephen seems to be. I mean, he was never a big happy clappy trans supporter, but really, he's now sort of doing a Russell Brand, moving to the right, knocking around with some hard right types. And that's
a bit of a worry.
Pretty sad.
I was just going to say, just to go back onto Twitter for a moment, not actually go onto it because it's a fucking cesspit, but there's a story today in the Financial Times about, or yesterday, about companies getting a bit of cold feet advertising on Meta now because they're worried. They'll have an advert on Facebook that says, hey, come to my happy thing. And underneath it'll be like, why not be a Nazi? Do you like Nazi? I like Nazis. Hey, Nazis are great.
Yeah, and if there's no checking and they're not policing it, and any fact checking is going to be done in Texas, it is going to go like that. You can't control it. It's a snowball. It runs down a hill. Yeah. It will start. Everybody will be on the gateway. They've been holding the battle at trans rights, and there's been some it's not been great for trans people on Facebook even now. But you take that gate, it's going to run to trans, to climate denial, flat earth, anti-vax, Nazis. And that's where it will all go. It'll turn into a hashtag like Twitter did, and it won't be very nice. So, I think that advertisers will end up pulling off because they will be, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But I saw the article in the FT, and there's been a number of other, they're going to be nervous. Yeah. Where does my advert appear?
Just to mention, Sarah saying, I don't use public toilets. I have had a kidney infection. I don't even drink in hot weather.
Yeah.
Would it be useful to have an app that shows where all the unisex toilets are?
There is an app actually.
Because I'm thinking like the Nero in Durham is a unisex toilet. It's a disabled.
Yeah, that's what a lot of trans people are doing. They're navigating. Like Pretz have unisex loos, and so coffee shops.
Is there an app though? Is there an app?
There is a website. I don't think it's been updated too recently. I looked at it not that long ago, but it did list a lot of non-binary, all gender, loos that you could use. I mean, this is something Kemi was trying to get rid of all gender loos in her last, but luckily she didn't get in. But Yeah, there is a website. I have to Google it. I can't remember what it
Okay.
was, but I did look it up a couple of
Yeah.
months ago for somebody else, and I was thinking about how am I going to navigate when I go to Manchester or I'm going up to Scotland? Am I
Mm.
because I call it the Moto service station test. It's like I'm allowed to use the female loos, but would I? And so what can I do? And so it's kind of like you're looking at can I get to this very long distance? What about airports? If I wanted to go on holiday, can I wanted to use an all gender loo? Which airports have got them?
Well,
That's
you
going to
can use the toilet on the plane though.
You can use the toilet on the plane. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is weird, that isn't it?
Yeah. So let's move on then. There's been a open letter to Google because Google Gemini listed the LGBT Alliance as a good resource for LGBT.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
And
Is that like
obviously,
listing the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, as a good
you may
socialist
comment.
party?
It's
It's got
not
socialist in
been.
the name.
I'm not, I don't want to get into trouble, but the LGBT Alliance hasn't been happy clappy about trans people in general. So it being listed by Gemini as a resource for the LGBTQI community.
I'd like to know if anyone in the LGBT Alliance is actually gay. You know,
I don't know. I don't know
we should
anybody
go
in the
along
Alliance.
to some
I don't
undercover
know.
investigation.
But luckily, well, the good news is there were a lot of LGBT organizations wrote to Google and said, really? And there's been a response from Google to those organizations. You can Google that, the letters that have been written.
Yeah.
What I should call out, which I was going to do at the beginning of this, what the trans podcast, a lot of the stories I'm reading today came from them. They are
Yeah.
an excellent resource. The trans, everything I'm talking about, they've talked about over the last couple of times. I listen to it. It's a hard listen. They are funny. They are clever. They are journalists. They write some good stuff. So I just, they give me the ideas to come here and talk to you about it. Because they put, and there's also Transactional, Trans Legal Project, Trans Safety Network, and Translucent are all great organizations. But what the trans give me the ideas for the chat. So they were the ones that highlighted this letter and all these other topics today. I listened to their podcast this morning. Hard listen, but they deliver it with a bit of sugar.
Yeah.
And so, and they highlighted that Google Gemini was listing them as a reference. And in the LGBT, a lot of trans groups didn't think that was really true. And they wrote to Gemini, and Google have responded positively. So we'll see.
So let's talk about HRT. This is
Oh God!
really
So
disturbing
I hate to be the breaker of, trans kids, trans adults, same-sex marriage, women's rights. It's in that order, and here we go. We have finished with the kiddies. They've taken all the kids' care away, and now here we are. We're on the adults. Ta-da! Tick. So we're hearing Transactional have been highlighting that lots of organisations have been. Doctors, GPs have been withholding HRT from trans adults, just suddenly ending it. Some say, it's we haven't been financed to do it, or I don't know how to care for you. Now, if it was you and you had some disease that nobody had ever heard of, the doctor would open a book and read it. But for trans people, it's like, I don't know anything about this. It's easy. You give them you tell them what your HRT levels need to be. You give them two numbers, and your HRT reading needs to be between those two numbers.
I've been to the doctors, and the doctors literally Google something in front of me.
Yeah, they do that on lots of things. So it can be not trained. It can be belief, right? So that's crept in, and you'll see on the Transactional survey. So that has been really bad. So this clinic called the Jubilee Park Medical Partnership in Nottinghamshire just stopped, and they're doing like a 3-month window, and then they're going to withdraw at the stop. And some of these trans people have been handed over from a gender identity clinic, because there were some saying, you didn't come for a gender identity clinic, I'm ending your care, you did it privately. But now some of these people came for a gender identity clinic. They've been handed over with a letter saying, we've finished with them, please can just prescribe their HRT for life, bye. And they've said no, you've got to go back to your gender identity clinic for prescriptions. But you can't do that because the gender identity clinics do not prescribe, which is why they pass you back to your GP for blood tests. Some of the excuses that, they're saying they're not funded to do it. Well, this is probably the only thing they're not funded to do. I know that I've heard that anecdotally it might be ADHD drugs as well. So there's some of that. There is a sort of conflict between some of the guidance. The Royal College of GPs had some weird guidance on, when you shouldn't prescribe. that looks like it's been trumped by the British Medical Association, which kind of says you should prescribe and look after trans people.
Is this just in Nottingham at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's all over the UK on and off. There are patches of this. In the southeast, it's very bad.
They're stopping prescribing hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah. And
which is something that you can get if you're again, you can get it if you're cis.
Yeah.
But they're saying you can't have it if you're trans.
But they say it's
what's the reasoning? Is it
they're not trained. GPs aren't trained for trans care. Trans care is easy. 20 minutes of training will train a GP in trans care. It's easy. I could do it. And have done. But the internet,
that is utterly disgraceful.
Yeah, because you're doing harm. I've been on HRT since 1998. If you withdrew it, my bones would get brittle, my skin would go dry, I would stop sleeping, I couldn't concentrate, I'd probably die in 5 years if I didn't top myself. So you're causing harm. And it's disgusting that these are doctors that are deciding that they're going to hurt trans people. So I think that is the internet. I think I saw somebody sent me a link to a video of a trans campaigner where they'd written to the care board, the integrated care board, and even the integrated care board in that video had said the Jubilee practice had to prescribe. But I don't know if it was just one person on a video saying that had happened. But I don't know if that was just one case. It may not have happened, but I think it did.
Yeah.
So they all writing to their MPs. There was a protest outside the clinic. The council's been involved. The gender identity clinics have been really good. There's been a lot of media on this. They've generated a lot of noise. So we'll see. But I always say to trans people, write to your MPs and say, wherever you are in the country, if it does happen to you, Transactional have got some great guidance on what you can do. There's a number of steps you can go through.
Yeah.
You should fill in their survey and tell them that it's happened to you. But what ultimately ends up this happening is if they do ban it, you obviously could try private. There's the levy review, which may do a Wes Streeting and block the private as well. And then we're all buggered. But what might then happen, what is going to happen is that trans people will get it cooked up. There are a load of online cook clinics that will make HRT or testosterone for you. And that's what a lot of young people are doing now anyway, especially. And so those clinics exist.
That's not correct, though, is it?
We're a third world country on care. I mean, we are third world now.
Do you ever see the Dallas Buyers Club? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah,
where people are trying to get
it's exactly like that.
And they were having to go through the maddest fucking ways of getting this medication that should have just been available to them.
It is. I mean, the levy review is going to come along, and trans people don't. It's been it feels like it's been set up the same way as CAS. So there'll be the NHS won't prescribe unless you've been for a gender identity clinic. Lots of people didn't. They went through private clinics to save the NHS resources.
Yeah.
And then they'll get their clinic, and then there'll be people who've transitioned years ago, went for privately, and then they'll be told to go to a gender identity clinic and get an appointment, which will be 5 to 10 years, and therefore they won't have estrogen for 5 to 10 years, and they will die. That, in my view, because they will retrospectively have a lot of health issues. So it is taking adult care, because it was like, remember, it's all about just the kids, don't care what the adults do, but now they care about the adults, because Cass told them to go and do a review of the adults care in her report, and now they're doing it. It feels like a stitch up, and this is a Labour government that doesn't give a shit about trans people. So I am very worried about this. A lot of people are. Yeah. We'll see.
Understandably.
Yeah. So there are lots of patches. It's not I want to just reassure people. Lots of GPs are prescribing. Lots of GPs are still doing it, but there are patches, and Transactional are monitoring it. And they've got lots of good help on how to, and a lot of trans people who've actually pushed back have actually then got their estrogens back or their testosterones back.
As one angry pagan and Chris C are pointing out, they take a Hippocratic oath, do no harm.
Yeah. And they are doing harm, in my view. In my view, I think they are going to do harm.
Okay, so we need to move on because we're running out of time.
We do, yeah.
We've got the
we're nearly there.
The EHRC requested.
Go so quickly. All this transphobia and hate. Yeah. Just go so quick.
I know. There's so much to get through. 404 public body organisations to send guidance and application of the Equalities Act.
So this is Baroness Faulkner. This is actually quite funny. This is a good news story in a way.
Yeah.
Because the Labour went, we're not changing the Equality Act because it works. We don't need to change it. You can bar trans people from single-sex spaces if you have a legitimate aim, right? And some organisations sometimes do. It works, right? because if you put sex-based rights into the Equality Act, then organizations could ban us completely, and that's what anti-trans campaigners want. It's not to protect women from trans people, because we don't go into toilets and attack them, but that's their argument. Anyway, so Baroness Faulkner wrote to 404 public bodies and said, how are you applying the Equality Act? And what was really funny is they all responded, and only 10% of them were 10% were applying it incorrectly.
So 90% were doing it correctly.
90% were doing it correctly, and we don't know which way that 10% went. They could have been really super trans inclusive, right? We don't know. So, so that was the silver lining. It was like, well, that's quite funny, because actually 90% of everybody doing anything right is a good result. I worked in aviation a long time ago. Doing 90% things right, that's really, it's pretty good. Your throwaway and your wastage and stuff. Anyway, so now Faulkner's now said, well, maybe we have to tighten up the statutory guidance. Remember, death by guidance. So we're now a bit worried about that bit. Yeah. But anyway, it was quite funny. There was a little bit of good news with that.
And then we've got some really shit news come from America. Yeah, so the GOP and two
the genital obsessed party
and two Democrats, Texas Democrats, of course, they voted in the House of Representatives, the lower house of an American Parliament, of American Congress, and they voted to stop trans women from taking part in sports. This is going
all six of them.
Yeah, this is going to result in genital inspections of children. And it was called by one of the Democrat lawmakers in arguing against this. They called it, and I quote, a predator's charter.
Yeah.
So there you go. This is J.K. Rowling protecting little girls, Rachel. She's protecting little girls by getting horrible, gruesome old men to tell them that they have to pull their knickers down to make sure that they're not actually just pretending to be girls, because that's something that a lot of people do.
But it's also adults. I think it was adults as well. And I think the fact is that trans women who've had gender reassignment, you can't tell. So it's like, it's not, are you a woman? Drop your trousers. Right, you haven't got a penis, you're a woman. But actually,
maybe they might have to check, see if they've got a uterus. Oh no, if you've had a hysterectomy, you won't have a uterus. Oh, okay. What should we check?
It is ridiculous for a handful of people that do it. I mean, it's because we're winning all these gold medals in the Olympics. That's what it
exactly. You're just dominating the sport. You're making it unwatchable for everyone else.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
It's unfair. It's unfair. Do you know what else is unfair, right?
Yeah.
Loads of marathon runners, they're not white, are they? I think they should make a law that says they have to run separate races. Give the white people a chance. It's just not fair. Swimmers,
that's where they were.
Swimmers are generally not black. Yeah. That's not fair. They should have a separate swimming race, right, for black people who can swim fast.
Yeah, they did. That's what they tried in the 70s when the black athletes were coming. This is what they were saying. It's the same sound bites.
Yeah.
And it's
did you know that's got nothing to do with physicality or anything? It's just this. Yeah. If you're a black athlete coming from Africa, you are very unlikely to have access to a swimming pool. What you will have access to is a road that you can run 26 miles down. So marathon running, sprint running, great. But those elite sports, and I would include swimming in that because you need a swimming pool, and not all these places have swimming pools, are accessible for normal people to get into. But all of the things that Britain wins awards in, cycling, yachting, sailing, shooting, you need specialist equipment that is fuck expensive. And that's why Whitey always wins. Almost. Yeah. Anyway, should we crack on?
Nearly there.
University free speech.
Yeah. So Gavin Williamson brought in this absolute free speech on campus universities.
Shut up and go away. Is that
under Conservative government? And the idea was to allow people who have hate speech to go onto campuses and be vile. And it was a lot to do with things like Kathleen Stock and all this sort of stuff. People at university stopping these people coming on to have free debate. And, it's all like free speech, but it's usually hate speech, and it's usually against a minority group like poor old trans people. So it was, anyway, the Tories lose. We all worked hard to get the Tories out. So things like this were dropped, but Bridget Phillipson's like, we're going to put that in. That sounds like a good idea. So that's coming back.
Christ.
So red fucking Tories. The Labour Party are not trans inclusive.
Rachel, what about my right to go to the local pub, which is a public place? It's a public house. The clue is in the name. I have a right enshrined, and I learnt this during the pandemic, enshrined in the Magna Carta, to go into that pub with a big spiel that I've written out about how much of a twat the landlord is. And I should be allowed by law to do that in my landlord's pub, and that landlord is not allowed to throw me out. The landlord's not allowed to say, no, you can't be giving this hate speech against me in my own pub, because it's a public house, it's a public forum. I should be able to go in there drunk off me tits, and no one should be able to stop me.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
I know it's the, all of these organizations that are free speech warriors, it's free speech, which is usually hard right speech. And it's usually at the expense of somebody else. It's never, if I wanted to go and do a talk at a university that it was the opposite of, it would be suppressed. I've never heard these organizations for free speech come out on a minority group saying, black people should have rights or trans people should have rights. We need to let them. It's always come out on these people that are attacking a minority group, it seems. And so so Labour dropped the ball again. So.
Clupid Botherscope is saying, this is what you voted for, I hope you're happy, which is a bit harsh because the Tories would have done this. Okay, so you would call them Tory light or whatever, but Labour are going to do, say, 50% of what I want. Tories are going to do nothing. They're just going to be horrible to everyone, more horrible than Labour's being. And at least with Labour, we can talk to them because most Labour representatives are all right. They're not inbred lunatics from the aristocratic fucking
there are some good, unlike almost all the Conservatives bar Caroline Noakes, they were all pretty anti-trans. There are some good Labour MPs, but the trouble is not enough of them, and there are a lot that
not all Labour MPs are good.
And there's not enough saying any. But let's talk
about care then. Let's talk about first, number one, write to your MP, see your MP. And talk about this stuff because they may not know. If all the information they're getting fed to them, and this is my problem with lobbying at the moment, all the lobbying that's going on in Parliament is coming from the right. It's coming from the oil lobby. It's coming from the tobacco lobby, the firearms lobby, the arms manufacturers, the fossil fuel
there's a big lobby group. There's a big anti-climate lobby group in London that now.
And these are getting invited to talk to the Labour Party because nobody else is. There isn't an equivalent on the left doing and pushing this sort of stuff. So they're like, I need to talk to someone about trans rights. I need to talk to someone about the environment. And the people queuing up to talk to them about that are the bigots, are the oil shills, the scumbags of the universe. And what do they call themselves in Thank You for Smoking? The merchants of death. That's who come to speak to Labour, merchants of death. And we need to fill that. We need to fill that void. So write to your MP, especially if you've got a Labour MP.
Or go and see them.
Especially if you've got a Labour MP and they only just won by a little bit and they know they're going to be out in a few years if they don't make everyone happy.
Remind them that 28% of Generation Z are LGBTQI and they're not going to vote Labour, a lot of them now. They're all going to go green and liberal. Form support group
groups.
Up. Get friendly with other trans people, especially, or ally to trans people. As I say, I've heard that a lot of them are on Blue Sky and they're all talking to each other. If there's a consultation on trans people in single sex wards, if there's a consultation on what do you think trans people should have healthcare, if you think there's a trans, fill it in as an ally. Fill it, because the anti-trans movement filled thousands of these bloody things in, and of course then the organizations go, oh, everybody wants to kill trans people, let's do that, because not enough trans people or allies filled them in. So ally, but also if you are trans or you're an ally, rest, take time off the wall, let somebody else step up there with a gun and take a shift, because I haven't done that and I'm not in the greatest place. And so you need to do it.
You have, because you're coming on this channel, you're talking about this stuff. We're having a forum for discussion. And I know, but you're doing it, and that is fantastic.
There'll be a gender crit watching this, and I'll be on Mum's Net tomorrow. Hey,
well, I hope they piss fire in fury that you're here. Not being heckled, not being hassled by the people in the chat, but being supported.
It's a safe place here
by a group of people who have all come together to say this is the way that trans people are treated in this country is just disgraceful. It is absolutely
it is. And everybody and people who care are too scared to speak out, which is their tactic. Yes. They don't be bombed in the Telegraph, Daily Mail, and the Times. They don't want to be
ally.
They don't say anything at all.
And you're absolutely right. And even if it's a small thing, even if it's a post that someone's being horrible to trans people, stand up for trans people. Say this is disgusting. How dare you write this? What is wrong with you?
It's also like, don't buy YMCA, don't be on Facebook, buy Pepsi and not Coke. You can fight back in a very small ways against some of this, people who are supporting the right that are hurting us. So the good news then, quickly finishing then, must finish on a high. Katie Montgomery's back.
Yay!
Get a 9-month break because she got the shit kicked out of her online, so she took some time off.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. Her Wednesday night program, it's on tonight.
It's on tonight. In fact, if you keep watching the show, you'll be automatically redirected to Katie's show, which is going to be on at 8 o'clock. So what I was thinking, maybe in the future we'll move to 7, so we can just go straight over to Katie's
We could do
show.
that. That's a good idea, because then we finish on time then, wouldn't we?
Yes.
So Katie does that. I watched the show, 2.5 hours show. She's broken it up into small bits. She did a big old one because she was coming back. I mean, the best. How we organize, how we speak to each other, how we support each other. Yeah. Just great. And it's really great to see her back.
Yeah. So if you go over there, mention us.
Yeah, mention us. Please say hello.
Rachel and Graham say hello.
Because we want to get her on the intersection. Blue Sky, I was going to say I'm not on it, but it is good. Trans people are all there. Blocking
is good, and also people are getting kicked off for being transphobic.
Yeah,
which
they
has
are
stopped on Twitter, and it's going to stop.
Twitter of 2004.
Yeah.
It does work. It's where all the leftists are anyway. The MAGA have tried to push on, but they haven't really got a foothold.
No, they haven't. No one's interested. You don't want to go on social media to be abused. Why would you do that? I don't like doing that.
No. Also, as I mentioned, the Meta thing is actually a lot of my campaigning friends and organizations that I fundraise for. LGB people have woken up that they're now being called mentally ill on Meta. They've realized a lot of them are forming, they're getting together, they're meeting. A lot of women's groups, gender networks, feminist networks are going, hang on a minute. These groups that said they were speaking up for us, why are they supporting Meta saying we're property and owned? So there's a massive wake of that going on. But it's not in the public domain, obviously, but there's a lot going on.
Chris in the chat is saying they think there needs to be a massive pushback against Labour regarding trans and disabled issues. I absolutely agree. And bundle them in with each other, because that pushes up your numbers, because there aren't that many trans people. I mean, listening to XK Rowling or whatever her fucking name is, she thinks that like everyone's a trans person in a bush face to jump out and assault her. But like the reality is that trans people are a minority of a minority.
Yeah.
But disabled people, I mean, they make up a huge chunk of the population. So if disabled people and trans people can work together, if you have a letter, right, instead of individual letters going off to an MP, if in your constituency, if you can organise a letter and get it signed by 100 people, constituents, with their addresses on that letter, your MP will listen to that. Because they were shit bricks. Because most of them have only been elected by a few hundred people.
Yeah, they do. Wes Streeting, for instance. I'm going to take 1,000 trans people up to his constituency in the next election and hand out leaflets for the Greens.
But yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's like writing a script and putting it in the drawer and hoping that Steven Spielberg will knock on the door. We have to be active. We have to be doing whatever we can. And we can't just give up. I know it seems like an insurmountable fucking mountain,
but it's not.
That we have to climb.
It changes overnight.
One step at a time.
It changes overnight. Last thing, I mean, the media reporting on trans stuff actually has dropped off under Labour, and this was the other small point. There's a really good site. Now, I already mentioned what the trans, which you should. There's also Queer AF, which is a new LGBT newsletter. You can subscribe. It doesn't cost much. It's worth doing. But also there's a new one called Trans Rights. It's called Trans Rights. That's the name of the newsletter. And it's run by H. Lee Hurley. Apparently they're prolific on Blue Sky.
Trans
but every
rights,
day they report
writing with a W. Trans rights.
Trans right. Yeah, one word. It's a great period. I subscribe. H. Lee Hurley apparently puts every day out on their social media the number of trans articles in the media that day.
Oh, cool.
And things like The Guardian have been ages. The Guardian hasn't been since August, since Sonia Sodder. So it's been like a long time since The Guardian's. Telegraph is the one that's, the Times did a really disgusting one linking sort of implying paedophilia and trans activism.
Yes. That was particularly disgusting, wasn't it?
That was a pretty nasty one.
It was written by a woman who's like she's a feminist lesbian. I think she's a lesbian. And
Sarah Dighton.
She's got a history of this,
It wasn't nice. And then the Telegraph obviously punches it out because all the Tories read the Telegraph and probably Reform. So they do about 3. But generally, the stories are down. There are papers like the New European, not great on trans kids, the New European. It's not been very good, but it's good on adults. There are lots of great, but trans rights is good, and H. Lee Hurley does put on their media, apparently puts the number of articles, but the general reporting is down. It could be because they think they've won. It could be that the Tories aren't in briefing. I don't know, but it's a good news thing that they're not writing as much. And I'm seeing occasionally you see a story. There was a Metro story yesterday about, what was going on Meta, which was really good. Oogler wrote that, and that was really good. So there's a lot of, the media is not as prolifically awful as it's being. The right-wing ones, the very right ones are, but the rest are, when we're just so bored with doing trans writing now, they've given up. So, because they kind of think they've won. But a lot of trans activism campaigning has gone underground. And as I say, LGBT groups and women's groups and feminist groups are linking up and they're getting funding. So it's going on. It may feel like you're isolated, but I can get out of bed in the morning because I know people are doing this stuff. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm fundraising for it, but I'm not doing it because I can't anymore. I'm broken, but I'm doing that stuff and letting younger people do that work. So there you go.
Yeah.
Finish on a high. But
Finish on a bit of pudding.
Yeah, that was a pudding.
Though,
Katie being back is pudding for me. I really enjoy her style. She delivers a lot of bad news, but she talks about it in a way that you can absorb it. What the Trans podcast does the same way.
I think Katie's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like she's exactly what the trans community needs.
Yeah, really. And she's young, and they want to listen to an old fart like me talking about it. Katie's young, she's funny, she plays electric guitar.
She's
brilliant.
Cool. She's fucking cool.
She's cool. Yeah,
she's very cool.
I keep chickens, and I don't do.
But I always think about this, like the way that social media is. I don't want to attend a lecture. I don't want to sit there, and someone just tells me stuff, and I just thought, it's probably the ADHD in me.
That's the good thing. I mean,
I just fall asleep.
But the kids are going to be all right, as that film says, right? They are organizing. You've seen the kids. The things they've done with the coffins and the Wes Streeting's constituency stuff. They are great. And there's 28% of LGBT, of Gen Z or LGBTQI, they are angry. A lot of millennials are, and they're organizing. They are organizing, and they are getting angry. They're not shouting about it on social media, because why put it out there? They are talking about it on the Blue Sky platform. Yeah. But again, I get links, and I can see the links when they send them to me, unlike Twitter, when somebody's in your link, you can't see it. Yeah. So I can see what they're doing. So I don't know. I'm optimistic about, we've got a lot of shit coming over from America. Labor are worse than useless, but I'm seeing.
But they're not worse than the Tories.
No,
and then that's what I think we can hassle them in the way that
since
we can't hassle the
intergalactic zombie laws have sucked our eyes out from our brains, Tories don't seem so bad now.
Exactly. But yeah, we need to be on Labour. We need to be on Labour because they're still finding their feet, and they're making a lot of fucking stupid mistakes that are going to alienate them in the next election, and we're just opening the door for Prime Minister fucking.
Yeah, I mean, my default. I'll be honest. My default is I do not like them. There are some good Labour MPs, but I do not like Labour. They were going to come in and they were going to treat us with respect, and they fucked us at every turn. So they need to do something. They need to prove it, and they have not proved it. So until they do, I'm green.
Yeah,
so,
fair enough. Can't argue with that. It's politics socially and not Labour social. So anyway, Rachel, I did a name slug for you. There you go. Your name comes up now, Rachel Harris. And mine as well, politics social. Yay! How cool is that?
I have a name. I'm official.
But I hope everyone who's been watching this has enjoyed the conversation. We've got so much more to talk about. Hopefully, we'll be able to do something like this next week, or it might just be. If you can get a guest for next week,
I'll try and get a guest. Because you don't want to listen to me and you, but we didn't do.
I feel a bit.
We were going to do impressions. We were going to have fun, but it was all trans again because it's always trans, isn't it? Because
it is.
But
yeah. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to the new members getting on board. So this stream is going to go over to Katie's stream, but Katie's stream doesn't start till 8:00, so I don't know if you want to keep this window open till then or whatever, but please say hello to Katie for us if you're on there. And until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my wonderful co-host, Rachel, who is great. There you go. You've just been told by Sarah Davis in the chat.
Thank you, Sarah.
You are great. And Joe Hales is great. Everyone watching this and everyone's left a comment. So thank you so much. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.